It has recently been revealed that Facebook's algorithm is further tweaked by human hands. And those human hands just happen to fade out news elements relevant for conservatives, or news elements that would definitely paint the left in the wrong and the right, well, in the right. To make things funnier, it was Gawker Media's Gizmodo rag who broke the story. But is it really news? Let's explore. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Freedom Alternative. Okay, so I won't waste your time with reading the news. Basically, Gizmodo broke the story and then The Guardian, of all places, ran with it and published further leaked documents that seem to prove that, yes, Facebook is messing around with the news feeds, particularly the trending function, to further boost news items that fit the progressive narrative and phase out news items that would poke holes in the said progressive bubble. Now, with an experience of 7 years behind me with doing punditry on Facebook and having had my account suspended more times than I can count for falling on the wrong side of the progressive groupthink, I have to say that I regarded this piece of news when it broke out as the news confirming that water tends to be wet and that the grass tends to be green during summertime. With that said, however, I've seen several individuals in this loose coalition of alternative thought that we all meddle in. I don't know how to call it since most aren't conservatives, but neither leftists nor libertarian. So anyway, I saw several individuals, one of them commenting on Andrea Hardy's Facebook that Breitbart has become an SJW place because they published an article praising the fact that Facebook will be subjected to a Senate hearing over these allegations. Now I suppose that person thinks that because SJWs usually like to prosecute anyone who disagrees with them, except Facebook isn't being subjected to a hearing because it's biased, but because it's not honest about it. Here's the deal. Facebook absolutely has every right to pick and choose what it promotes and what it doesn't promote. It's their backyard. The users are the product and not the customers. If you don't like it, don't use Facebook. So there's that. With that said, however, Facebook ought to affirm that outright, just like The Guardian does. I mean, nobody assumes that The Guardian is neutral. Everybody knows where the ideological loyalties of The Guardian lay, and there's nothing wrong with that. In a similar fashion, nobody assumes that Fox News is neutral. Everybody knows where the loyalties of Fox News lay. Same goes with Jezebel, Al Jazeera, L'Humanité, which is the former official paper of the Communist Party in France, Le Figaro, which is the Daily Telegraph of France, and so on and so forth. Nobody assumes that these outlets are neutral. They're upfront about their bias and everyone knows exactly what they're hearing. The same thing goes on YouTube. For instance, I only watch channels who are upfront about their bias. That's why I started my own channel with a video explaining as clear as possible where my biases stand and what sort of perspective one should expect hearing here. Not so with Facebook. The default assumption was that the feeds and the trending function were decided by an automatic algorithm that picked up data from what the actual users like and share. While no algorithm can be fully neutral, I mean, after all, the coder has a political leaning too, it was generally accepted that it's a much more neutral tool than, let's say, a function called editor's pick. And that, my friends, is a breach of trust. Now, whether that's an actual crime under the United States law in the way things happen, I don't know. And I think nobody actually knows at this point, which is why the Senate hearing is happening to at least get, more facts in. Ultimately, I really don't get why Facebook is so reluctant to be far more open about its policies. They've been more open about their pro-feminist and consequently pro-misandrist bias. Why not be fully honest and simply say, yes, we're a bunch of far leftists and will promote items that make the far left good, and anything to the right of Jeremy Corbyn will have a hard time being heard. Why not simply be honest? You see, this is why I sort of respect leftists like Sargon of Akkad or even the Young Turks. They're upfront about their bias. And that's also why I don't respect leftists like the CNN, MSLSD, BBC or SVT, because they insist they're not leftists, even though it's blatantly obvious that they are. I certainly would respect Facebook more if they'd simply say, yes, this is a far-left platform, everyone else is tolerated, but this is where our loyalties stand. That would be absolutely fine. But this story may go even a bit further than the morality of claiming neutrality. Now, if Steven Crowder is correct, and I have no way of checking whether he's correct or not, this case may eventually end up in a court of law. Again, if Steven Crowder is correct. Basically, Steven Crowder has some thin evidence that Facebook may be in breach of contract with some of its actual customers. For those of you unfamiliar with Facebook, if you run a page, you have the option to give money to Facebook in return for your posts to get a lot more views than they would normally get. Basically, if you have a page with, let's say, 50,000 likes and follows, one post may reach into the feeds of 1,000 of those followers. But if you pay Facebook money, that reach can go way up, even way above your actual following. Now, there's nothing wrong with that practice, mind you. After all, Facebook has to make money somehow, but if Steven Crowder is correct, certain conservative clients have paid money to get better reach, and Facebook still suppressed their posts solely because they were conservative. If that turns out to be true, Facebook is in deep trouble. Now, let's not forget how far Twitter's stocks have plummeted just at the news that they practice shadow banning. Imagine what will happen if reasonable evidence emerges that the tailoring goes much further than the trends widget and certain feeds and goes straight into fraud territory and gross breach of contract and trust. It's always amazing to me how these people who did create social media don't understand their own creation. In the world of social media and the internet in general, one can also fall rapidly, just like one rises up rapidly. If you piss off the internet has its own ways of paying back. And no matter how big Facebook may seem now, it's still bound to the market. Not to mention that the company itself is overevaluated anyway, but that's a different discussion. So, to sum up, it's not morally wrong nor illegal for Facebook to censor. It's their backyard, their rules. But it is morally wrong to be dishonest about it. And if you're taking money from people to make their posts visible and then don't do it because they're conservatives and you don't give them a refund, that may also be illegal. Because after all, Facebook could simply say, look, we can't take money from you to boost this post because this post is conservative leaning and we only endorse leftists. That would be a very, very fair answer. Freedom of association does start with freedom not to associate, and that applies even to slimy social media asshats. It's also very interesting that the leftists have started going, oh, boo-hoo-hoo, the conservatives are whining, but come on, the private property argument doesn't apply anymore. Well, yes, it does. So in the cases of, cooking gay wedding cakes. Anyway, that's the good word on this topic, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon on Freedom Alternative.